It's Monday, December 14th, 2015. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is GeekNights. Tonight, the death of QA, or not really.
Let's do this.
Scott witnessed me on the glory road as I died historic. Actually, no, I did not die historic. I just won the race. Scott died historic in last place.
Congratulations on winning the 50% random game.
The game that was a skill game until you lost.
It's a 50% random game. It's 50% skill and 50% luck. If you can make poor decisions and lose very easily. You can also just be unlucky and lose.
Well, it's got a sort of complex push your luck in the sense that odds making matters a lot. And
yeah, so in the second half of the final lap, I pushed it as hard as I could because that was my time to go.
But you were already behind because of poor decisions earlier.
No, I didn't make poor decisions.
I held back and took the safest possible risks the entire time, and then I had all the resources I needed to just floor it for the entire end of the race.
Well, listen, that's how things sometimes go in the world of racing.
Yeah, it was kind of cheating. I mean, I saw F1 on that course, so...
It's not good helping you.
Yeah, you know what I knew? You know what I knew from what I saw? They slowed down a lot at the two corners, and then they sped up again as fast as they could.
That's true for every race ever of cars, of
that
vehicles
is true.
Of any kind. When you have to turn, you must slow.
The X part of that track is pretty cool, like the course in Singapore, because it's basically an X with two pretty much 90-degree turns right at the same spot. So like there are hard turns, but there's also like some crazy long, like weird chicane-like things on the other side. But yeah, so I'm playing some games over the weekend. Playing a lot more games now that it's cold and can't bike to. Wait, it's not cold. It's spring. It wasn't yesterday the hottest yesterday in New York City history.
I'll take it.
Yeah, if it would stay like this here, but
listen, people are upset about global warming. You know what? I welcome it. I mean, yeah, the world's going to be destroyed or whatever. It's going to suck. That sucks. I don't like that. But what I do like is at least none of that will happen in my lifetime. And in my lifetime, New York will become tropical, hopefully, or more tropical. And that would make my life way, way better.
Problem. A lot of standing water and stuff in New York. If it gets much more tropical, malaria might come here.
That's fine.
New York with malaria is not a great place to be. Yellow fever, get some cholera hanging out.
I don't think I'm going to get malaria, even if malaria comes to New York.
If malaria comes to New York, you'll probably get it because you bike around all the time. You can't go to Rockaway anymore.
Why not?
That's where the mosquitoes are all going to be, by that Abobobo Bridge.
All right, so?
Then you'll get malaria.
I didn't automatically get it.
You'll get it if mosquitoes bite you if you're hanging outside.
I could also just constantly take prevention medicines.
Yeah, those drugs suck. There's a reason why when I travel, despite the fact that I'm going to some malaria areas, I don't take it, and I just don't fucking go outside.
Well, listen, Bill Gates is already putting mad money towards the malaria in Africa, so if malaria starts spreading to the rest of the world, definitely people are going to start putting a lot of money to fixing that shit real fast.
Nah.
Also, wouldn't that be a crazy good sci-fi story if, right now humans dominate the world, but in some distant future, malaria is like the #1 species on Earth because it just kills everything?
I don't think malaria specifically would become the biggest species on Earth.
There'd be more malarias than anything else.
But it wouldn't have any places to live left.
Mosquitoes.
But it doesn't just go from mosquito to mosquito.
They'd eat each other.
It goes mosquito to human to mosquito. Mosquitoes can't eat mosquitoes yet unless the ape learns to kill the ape. So in actual news, we talked about this a bit because it was coming for a long time, but it actually happened. The FAA regulations start in a week on drones. If your drone weighs more...
If you're in the United States and your drone weighs more...
If you're in the United States and you have a drone that you can control, so like model rockets don't count, unless your model rocket has a guidance system that you control from the ground, and it weighs more than 250 grams, so 0.5 pounds, meaning every drone worth a damn, you must register it by law on an FAA website.
The same way you register for like a ham radio? Is there a test needed?
No, you have to register it as yours, like serial number and everything, so if it does anything shady, they can come to your house and be like, yo, dude.
Oh, that's not too bad. It's not even like a driver's license. That's way easy. You just go to a website and fill it out and push submit and you're good?
It costs $5, but...
Oh, no. You can afford a drone, but you don't have $5 extra.
But
you spent your last dollar on the drone.
For the first month, because this is new regulation, registration is free.
Oh, even better. You spent your last dollar on the drone and you're still good.
And you only have to register it before you fly it the first time.
So if you keep your drone in the closet until the spring because it's winter, you could just register it in the spring, but then you got to pay $5 because
This
it's not
is
free.
this is the minimal regulation. I think it's fine.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah, I have no problems with
I got
this.
no problems with this. I
Now-
mean, you had to register a car. This is way easier than that, and it
And
probably should be way more. You should probably have to take a test to make sure you know how to fly the stupid drone.
Yep, but I honestly feel like this is a good thing because one, if we need to insurrect against the government and we're using drones to do that, we're just not registering them anymore.
Dirt.
And also, that's the situation where some of the other stuff we'll talk about tonight has to go on. But also, right now, I think more people use drones not maliciously, but just stupidly than
I
use
see a
them-
lot of film production crews and TV production crews using drones to get aerial shots, and I think that is the current, most practical and prominent use of drones.
But a lot of those uses are actually kind of illegal because of the no commercial use clauses for a lot of drone use in a lot of places. But this specific regulation, I think, is fine. And apparently they piggybacked on the old regulation for radio-controlled, propeller-driven airplanes.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, and those things, while they are...
I'd rather be hit by the drone
Me
than
too.
the airplane.
I've flown those things. There are real airplanes with gas engines. They're just tiny, but they're not light.
Why don't we make a drone with a gas engine that's not light?
Pretty sure people have. I mean, I've seen remote-controlled ones of those where there's a camera feedback and you're just flying a real plane, sitting on the ground. Don't crash it. So yeah, some other news going on. So this is just a little bit, but there's a town in North Carolina. So basically, the
a bad place.
The South's north
Yes.
in the U.S. And in the town of Woodland, North Carolina, the citizens of that town did not want a solar plant to happen in their town.
Well, who wanted to put a solar plant in their town?
Some company, and apparently there already are 2 solar plants in the vicinity, and a company wanted to put another one there.
Are they like the power company, or
I don't know. I assume it's private
did
companies.
they
I don't know.
they wanted to power like their own building? Like
Yeah.
they had their own office building. They
Well, a
wanted to power
private
it.
company could generate power and put it on the grid. I mean, I don't know about North Carolina regulations.
Sure, but you get paid for doing that?
So the council not only rejected the proposal,
So this is the town council of the
Yeah.
town. Okay,
but voted on a complete moratorium on all solar farms henceforth.
right, they're probably just all anti, not believing global warming Southern nut jobs.
One person in the town-
What part of this is news?
So one person in the town who was at the student council at the council meeting,
They break the South Shell.
what do you think that are the reasons that people at the meeting might have said they didn't want this solar plant
They're
in the
just
town?
NIMBYs in the South. They're stupid. They're probably believing.
But
in,
like, what reason do you think one of those NIMBYs would say out loud?
That they don't believe in global warming. Solar power is dangerous.
You were an order of magnitude off. So,
All right, I gotta get crazier.
so some of the reasons were
Cancer.
the solar. Well, cancer was one of them.
Okay,
They can't tell me these things don't cause cancer.
sure, because we can tell you a coal power plant does cause cancer.
Solar panels would suck up the solar energy going into the town, so plants wouldn't do as well, and we wouldn't get as much sunlight.
All right, so I mean, obviously these are the crazies coming to the town council, but the people
Only crazies
on-
go to town council
But the
meetings.
people on the town council are slightly less crazy while still being stupid and Southern.
Yeah. Oh, it would block.
Right?
It would
Right?
block photosynthesis for nearby farms.
That is not true.
That was a big thing. One person complained that they've already surrounded her farm in solar plants and it lowered her property values, but a reporter went and checked and there aren't solar plants near her property as far as they can tell.
And what about her property values? Are they going up or down?
It's North Carolina, so
So nothing's worth anything anyway. Okay.
we might be applying a urbano-centric and north-centric view to this.
But that is also a factual view. There's nothing wrong with being a something-centric view if that view is also founded in truth.
And the other
A
reason,
truth-centric view
the other
also
reason
happens
was-
to be urbano-centric.
they were afraid that if you build solar plants, young people won't want to live there anymore.
I don't think young people care about what kind of power plants are there. Also, young people don't want to live in North
Yeah.
Carolina no matter what power plant you have.
I don't think there's anything you can do to keep young people there except entrench them in such poverty and ignorance that they do not know they can escape.
You can get young people to live there by stop being a NIMBY and let awesome things be in your town, like a roller coaster and an arcade and a business that isn't backwards.
Dude, if
by you moving away from the town,
If a
so they don't
small
have to
town
live
like
with
that,
you.
tell you what, if a small town like that could give me a job that pays even half what I make now with reasonable hours and has another equivalent employer, so I could quit. It's not a company town.
Build a train.
And I can commute without a car. I can see a 70mm Panavision movie.
Build a bunch of bike lanes.
So I can see Hateful Eight on opening night in its real format. There's bike lanes everywhere. I can see the opera if I want.
I can just walk in and see the Scream if I want.
I'd say there's an arcade, but there really aren't arcades here, so I can't really hold them to that. There aren't roller coasters here either, so I can't complain about that.
I can go to the game shop any night of the week, and there's like 8 people playing Netrunner.
Oh yeah, there's got to be at least 8 people in the town who play Netrunner.
Well, no, not 8 people in town who play Netrunner. When you go to the meetup, there's usually around 8 people, which means there's way more than 8 people who play.
So Damage Control for the town argued that the actual reason they voted no was that the 2 previous solar projects did not benefit the town in the way that they expected. But at the same time, I cannot find evidence that it hurt the town in any way because they bought the land, and the land's not worth that much anyway. And further, even if that is the reason the town council says they voted this way, the opinions expressed by the townspeople are opinions by real voters who not only vote in America, but are so politically active that they go to town council meetings. People like me and Scott don't go to town council meetings.
Well, that's how politics works. If you go to a town council meeting, it's because you have no job and you have nothing else to do. If you have no job and nothing else to do, it's because you're dumb or old and you don't know things. If you know things, you have a job and a life, and you don't have time to go to town council meetings.
Now, not necessarily. There are a lot of people who know things and
Therefore,
can't get jobs.
We should change it and to make it just like it was in the 1700s. We don't need to be like only property owners can vote. It should be only people with jobs and brains can vote.
But there are a lot of people with brains who can't get jobs, and there's a lot of people who are disenfranchised.
I was not being 100%.
Because they don't have access to brain and beginning services.
Obviously, I was not being entirely right. That was just a crazy, sarcastic suggestion.
The only thing about this is when tech issues like this come up in small town meet, like I tried to go to Beacon Town Council. Well, Beacon's a city, but
did you actually ever go to it?
I went twice.
Whoa.
You know what it was? It was nothing but inane bullshit that I couldn't affect and actually didn't care about because it literally didn't matter. Nothing of importance was discussed.
It wasn't the solar panel for you to comment on?
There was not a solar panel for me to comment on.
Okay. Why wasn't there a representative from the company that wanted to build it at the meeting?
I assume
and didn't
so.
they, say?
And I assume they had some sort of musical where they did their both sides, and then there was a dramatic.
And didn't the person say, no, that's not true, no, that's not true, no, that's
there was
not
a
true?
dramatic debate about evolution at some point. William Jennings Bryan got up and gave his speech.
Right.
Or what? That was the play, actually.
You should be able to sue.
That was Inherit the Wind, not this town council meeting.
There should be a way to sue at like the next higher level of government, the lower level of government, for making a decision based on false information.
Hey county, this city is so dumb you need to overstep them.
Yes.
Some states have mechanisms for that kind of thing.
And for the federal government, you should be able to go to any town. It wraps around.
Just a circle?
Yes, if you go to your mayor, and the mayor and some scientists say the federal government, did something wrong based on false pretty they have to undo.
So Tor has some problems. Like Tor is pretty well, one, it's used primarily by child porn and drug traffickers, but Tor also is really easily compromised in that the NSA probably runs a lot of the Tor nodes.
Well, I mean, it's so popular and everyone knows it that it's sort of like, yeah, it gets the job done, but it's not super perfectly getting the job done in a mathematically guaranteed, locked-in way.
So researchers at MIT have actually created a real alternative, and it echoes some of the things that Waste did, which was, we've talked about Waste on GeekNights a bunch of times. We're kind of Waste fanboys.
Well, I mean, Tor and Waste are not really alike at all.
Well, they serve a lot of similar purposes, though. It's just one was an application that offered like chat and all this stuff built in, and one is just an anonymized browse the web and communicate thing.
Yeah.
So you can probably guess what parts of Waste this appropriated by its name, because the name is Vuvuzela.
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 So it's loud and annoying, and you want to punch whoever's got one.
I imagine the switches.
Anyone who uses this needs a kicking.
I imagine the network admins and places that use this will feel that way about them, much like I feel about Vuvuzelas. But the interesting thing is you should read MIT's paper. I will link to it directly, because
can the listener understand this paper?
So the threat model, as in, this is the threat that Vuvuzela is designed to avert.
What threat are they averting?
I'm going to quote this because this is real important. This is why this is better than Tor, and why anonymized data transfer and anonymized communication is real important. So before the threat model, what this is designed for on a high level is that metadata is gathered about you. Like Scott went to this website and he emailed these 10 people with this frequency by person. So even if we don't have
even if we encrypt all this information, right? So the data is encrypted. People can still see that XIP made a TCP IP connection to that IP at these frequencies and sent this much data across the wire. So if you can pretty much tell, even if I'm using encryption, Time Warner can look at my traffic rates and which direction the traffic is going in and say, oh, he's using BitTorrent for something.
Yep, Google.
Probably, most likely.
Even if all of our chats are encrypted, the NSA could figure out Rim and Scott know each other.
Yeah, they see a whole bunch of download, and then they see all the download stops, and there's a stream of upload. They're like, well, that was a BitTorrent transfer of this about this size, probably a movie of some sort.
Joey Jojo emailed this one address a bunch of times on a regular basis.
We don't know what he said in those emails,
but that address is of a mental health clinic that primarily treats, and you can start, and
either Joey Jojo or someone he knows needs help at the mental health clinic.
So the two statements that justify this thing that MIT did are, one, officials at the NSA stated that if you have enough metadata, you don't really need content.
True.
And separately, quote, we kill people based on metadata.
That's true.
So here's the threat model that they are attempting to circumvent. Vuvuzela, I'm quoting now. Vuvuzela's design assumes that the adversary that controls all but one of the Vuvuzela servers, users do not need to know which one, control an arbitrary number of Vuvuzela clients, meaning possibly every client.
Or possibly one client.
But yours. And can monitor, block, delay, or inject traffic on any network link. That is a bigger threat model than I have ever considered in anything I have ever thought about.
So in other words, the NSA could set up this entire network where every single node on the network, every server, and every client is just trying to spy on anyone who tries to use this thing.
Yep. Scott
runs. You come in and you start up one server and you add it to the network, and you know for sure that one server is yours, that it is not compromised by the NSA. It is running the true Vuvuzela code that is not compromised, and you spin up your Vuvuzela client. You can communicate securely without them the entire rest of the network knowing jack shit about what you're doing.
So in a sense, the NSA is probably going to run most of the nodes on this network, thus subsidizing
me and Rim can set up one server, connect to each other, and even if the NSA runs every other server and client on the whole network, we can communicate in absolute perfect secrecy.
I've heard the term, this is solipsistic security, in the sense that I can only know myself, right?
Yep.
I know my node, so I'm good. I only need to know about one, and the one I control counts. That's crazy.
Yep.
They also is now,
and all those evil ones will just be helping you out.
So in this situation, two users communicating through Vuvuzela should have their communications protected if their two clients and any server are uncompromised. We also assume that the server's public keys are known to all users.
Well, that's what public keys are. They're public. Yeah,
I hope
but, so.
But you could come up with models where people share public. Anyway.
Right. Better generate your public key well, though, because they can still compromise the key system.
The only other assumption is that the users have a separate mechanism to pre-share each other's keys, or at least discover who is on the other side of the key.
Otherwise, I mean, you could still share the keys over the network, but then you'd be giving away metadata of, Scott and Rim shared keys.
Yes. So Scott and I would trade like a USB stick once, and then we're good.
We're good. Or some other website just has a bunch of keys, and you go to that website and just search for someone and download their key.
It works based on, think of like Cold War spies. So you have drop boxes that are they're mailboxes, but they function like dead drops. So I put a message in a mailbox. My client puts that message there at some point between now and like 50 seconds from now. But I'm also putting messages of randomly encrypted data into a random set of other drop boxes. And basically, it's like all communication is two ships passing in the night. And there's an infinite number of magic ships filled with bullshit. And there's no mathematical way to determine bullshit from actual shit. You can read the paper.
And how does the person I'm trying to send the message to get the shit?
You can read the paper for that, but basically, because we know our keys, our clients basically know which Dropbox to get the data from.
But no one else does.
No one else knows that we are communicating with each other.
And there's too many other ships. They can't find our ship, even if they were looking.
So this is the kind of shit you need to do if you want to make real secure communication of real secure networks. And MIT is building this one. So
is there actually software you can get? Is there even a GitHub or something?
So researchers created it. I believe they're running it in MIT right now.
So you have to code it from the paper to use it today.
Yes, or meet one of these people at MIT. Follow this project if you care about the things that Tor is good at, because this will do it better, and I doubt it will be backdoored. So Uber, but for blank, basically means we're going to disrupt a market by getting rid of all the regulations, not having employees.
We're going to set up a company that ignores all laws and just do evil things, but be so convenient to the customer that we make a lot of money and then try to fight to keep our business around.
Never mind that a real
Uber, see FanDuel, see DraftKings.
Yep. Never mind that a real company could have the same
Airbnb.
Like regular taxis in New York could have the same user interface as Uber, and just they'd cost a little more than Uber, and people would still make, you know, actual livable money, kind of. But I digress. Gigster wants to be Uber of software development.
Well, that's a little more difficult because unlike, say, driving a car from A to B, it's a little harder to, it's not just pay, I'm done. It's, you know, there's a lot of stuff that goes into
so apparently I
development.
sign up and I send you my idea. Gigster then passes it on to developers who sign up.
There are so many implementation details. This is why you need like a company of people working together every day to build the software.
Yeah, Gigster will apparently put a team together and have them design it and then send back a functioning app for a flat fee.
But what about my input other than the idea? Can I write a full spec? How much spec do I write? You know, there's so much going on there.
Yeah,
I got to revise the spec after we see what can be implemented.
I feel like no level of spec is going to make this work very well, and the sole purpose of this nonsense business is for a VC type person.
And if you can write good software, you're not working for Gigster. You have a job, so it's like you're only getting shitty developers with this, right?
Or you're getting people who are between work and just want to get paid. You know what you're probably going to get mostly? People who are currently in college, who are also going to submit the code they write for you to whatever their projects are inside of the college.
Who knows? You're not getting someone you want.
Yeah. So apparently Gigster will own the code to the app it designs for you, and it leases the software to you with a license.
That's not good. Why would you pay for that?
So
yes, I will pay someone else to make something for them. It's like, I'm paying you to make it for me.
I don't know if this company is trying to steal money from VCs, or if they're trying to be a conduit for VCs to have their money stolen by other VCs. Like, I can't imagine any legitimate use for this other than in a utopian world economy where everyone has enough money to eat and people only do this for fun.
I mean, I want to say this is going to fail because I'm 90% sure it will. I'm surprised it hasn't failed already. But
Uber
maybe
succeeded.
People are just so dumb and have so much money. Maybe they'll not.
Well, simultaneously, there are probably developers who don't live in cities but need work.
I don't know.
Because there's not a lot of coding jobs outside of cities.
I don't know.
Yeah, but the trend of Ubering business models worries me, but I'm amazed to see such a crass, like, Gigster is the kind of thing I would make up as a joke in, like, RoboCop as a movie. And the fact that it exists for real.
It's an Onion article come true.
Yeah, I feel like too many Onion articles. Oh, here's another Onion article that came true. Philips pushed a firmware update to their light bulbs that locks out third-party light bulbs.
Yeah, so there's this line of light bulbs you can get. They're LED light bulbs and the controllers, right? And you can use like this open wireless networking protocol called Zigbee. I've used it. It's been around for a long time.
Forgot about Zigbee.
Yeah, it's not something that's like a consumer thing, right? It's mostly when you're making products you would use it, right? But and you can use it to like communicate with the light bulbs, to like, turn them on and off when you're not home, or change the colors, or all kinds of stuff, right? You communicate with the light bulbs with an app. But
I would love to have an app that was just a map of my house and just control the light bulbs.
Yeah,
light switches,
it can sort of do stuff like that. But
because I don't have light switches everywhere I want them. But anyway,
so they changed it to where you have to use their light bulbs or their approved light bulbs with it. If you update your software, you can't just use whatever light bulb you want. You got to use their bulbs. And it's just like, what the fuck? And, on the one hand, it's like it's easy to understand why they did this. A, they want you to buy their light bulbs so they make more money. But B, they're worried that if you put some shitty light bulb in there and it somehow explodes or causes other damage because they're not, accounting for every conceivable possible light bulb you might use in their software, so they don't want to get sued. So they're also preventing litigation, but also being evil with the DRM, not letting you use whatever the hell light bulb you want.
But I feel like the middle of the road should be that unlicensed, like light bulbs that aren't up to spec, if they cause a problem, you void your warranty. That's how most people do that.
And you can't sue us, and you agree not, it's like that's that simple. I don't know.
Which can also, in some ways, be BS because of the whole like right to repair your own car thing.
Sure.
Like, should be legally be allowed to let a non-licensed Porsche mechanicize your Porsche. I probably wouldn't if I had a Porsche, but you might want to, and I feel like that.
Shouldn't it be required that you give me the diagrams and technical specs of anything that I buy ever, enough to where I could make any repair necessary on my own?
Is this all disappearing because we are some of the last people who grew up in an era, like literally, where when we got our first computer, it came with this multi-100-page book that had pinouts, voltage diagrams, and schematics of all the chips on the computer.
I bought a stereo that came with all that.
My mixer has that now, and I bought that like not that many years ago, but mixers are weird. They all have schematics. Mm-hmm. Is that just disappearing?
Mm-hmm. I think it's already disappeared, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people these days, they buy an iPad, you never open it.
True. But while that's disappearing, I guess, will modern young nerds, like young millennials and the generation after them, see this as a bad thing, recognize that it's happening, be afraid of it?
They don't even know anything about
Do
this.
they want control of their devices, or have they given that up entirely?
They don't even know that it's an option.
Is it okay that they don't know that it's an option?
No, but they don't. No one knows. Even old, no one knows except nerds. Nerds only. No one knows.
The stereotype of a nerd is increasingly becoming someone who consumes technology but does not know anything about it.
No, not a lot of people know a lot about it.
Are nerds going to go back into the distance, pull out Vuvuzela, and live in our own darknet for the rest of time and then die out?
I hope so.
But anyway, things of the day. Do you have a thing of the day?
So apparently, there's a fancy refrigerator you can buy from Samsung, and this refrigerator has like a screen on the front, and that screen can actually do some sort of cool things if you're just so ridiculously wealthy you can buy a refrigerator with a screen on the front. And the most useful of those things is to display your calendar right the fuck there on your fridge where normally you'd look for it, right?
Dude,
except now it's a digital calendar, so you can get your Google Calendar synced up with it, and you'll see all your Google, That's really freaking cool,
Dude,
actually.
that'd be extra great because I'd make a sub-calendar in Google of like what I'm going to cook on different days and it'd just be sitting right there with the recipe.
Yeah, and you get reminders like from the fridge, so you're standing in the kitchen and just be like, hey, you got to remember, when you're eating breakfast this morning, Anyway. So
leave a note, the milk is bad.
Right, it's kind of cool. It's really expensive and probably would never buy this, but, if you're, it's okay. Apparently, Google changed their API about how Google Calendar works. And, of course, you can't, just like a smart TV or so-called smart TV, nobody's making software updates to the Samsung fridge, right? Just like Android phones. No one's making software updates for those.
Oh, the title of the thing you're linking to.
It's not an iPhone, right? So it's not iOS where they keep updating it, or it's not Windows where they keep updating it, right? They don't update this thing. So there's this thread in the Google Calendar help forum that says can't sign into Google Calendar on my Samsung refrigerator. And it's really long because I guess a lot of people have this refrigerator and they can no longer sign into Google Calendar on it. And so now it's sort of like they paid a whole bunch of money for a refrigerator that no longer does the thing that they paid all that money for. You could have probably saved a bunch of money just by getting an old tablet and like taping it to the front of your refrigerator, something with updatable or open source software on it, and you would have been better off.
This is why you should never buy a smart TV. Never buy any device that has a computer in it that's not a computer if you expect that computer to do generic things.
I mean, don't buy some weirdo, side. You got to buy mainstream bits. Things that are supported.
But here's the thing. A Samsung refrigerator seems pretty mainstream, like a Samsung phone. Samsung phones don't get updates necessarily. So.
Yeah.
I mean, smart TV, like my TV is a smart TV.
If it's not a Google device, a Microsoft device, or an Apple device, I pretty much can't trust that it's going to get updates.
Yeah. Just can't sign into Google Calendar on my Samsung refrigerator. Looks like Samsung's response is eat a bag of dicks.
Yeah, we don't care. You bought our refrigerator. We're done with
Google's
you.
response is tell Samsung to eat a bag of dicks.
Yeah, you're supposed to update your software. What the fuck?
Wow,
I'm surprised nobody's just flashed the refrigerator to Linux or whatever.
Yeah, because desktop Linux came so far. I'm sure refrigerator Linux is even further.
You can run Doom on it. That refrigerator definitely runs Doom. I bet even Doom 2. Guarantee you could get Doom on that refrigerator.
Yeah, that'll be a project.
Maybe even Quake 1.
I ran Quake 1 in software mode.
If you can run Google Calendar, you might be able to run Quake 1.
So my thing of the day, this is a video.
And it's got internet because it can access Google Calendar, so maybe you could even do multiplayer Quake 1.
So actually what I really want to see is I want the fridge to figure out what's in it and order groceries for me.
And within our lives, that'll happen.
Yeah, RFIDs, but then we won't be able to update the firmware.
No, even just computer imaging, like the self-driving car can drive. There's no reason a camera inside the fridge won't be able to tell milk from orange juice.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that Vivino app I use, I take a picture of a wine label without, not even like a barcode.
Right, yeah.
It tells me what that wine is.
Just put a bunch of little tiny shitty cameras inside your fridge and a database, and eventually, you know, it'll be good.
I want to email and be like, yo, dog, you put that leftover mac and cheese in there a week ago. That ship has sailed.
Well, I mean, you're at the grocery store, and you'd be like, do I need sour cream? And it will go, ding, I see a sour cream in your fridge. The date on that sour cream is last month.
Why would I even be in the grocery
cream.
store? It's just the fridge is just ordering from Fresh Direct without my intervention. That's what happens.
That would be even better.
And when I come home, there's a sour cream already delivered, and I take it and I go, why did it order sour cream? And I go to the
fridge has access to your Google Calendar, it knows when you'll be out of town and doesn't order the sour cream then.
Yep, and there's an expired sour cream in the fridge, and there's a red light pointing at it in the fridge telling me that that's the one to get rid of.
No, I reach in the fridge and I grab it, and it'll say, throw that shit out, son.
Yeah, it just yells at me.
Don't eat that.
So our friend showed us this over the weekend. We were having a party. It's called Afterglow, Light Suit segment. It is just this crazy, amazing video of two dudes wearing these custom-made suits covered in LEDs, skiing down a mountain at night.
Okay.
This is crazy awesome to watch.
All right.
And as my follow-up thing of the day, here is a longer video of how they made this crazy video with all this lighting down a mountain, and it looked like it was really, really hard to make this thing.
They probably had sponsors.
They
of
did.
The corporate variety.
They had huge sponsors, and I point out that I did not say who the sponsors are, so that was ad dollars well spent, dudes.
Fuck you, sponsors.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
These videos are super amazing, though. In the meta moment, new book club's coming soon. Old book club was The Wheel of Time. We're going to be live at PAX South. We have three panels at PAX South.
Then MagFest.
Then MagFest, where we have fucking like 7 panels. Jesus.
Then there's like an Anime Boston and a PAX East after that. I don't know what the order is.
We have to have at least 4 panels or we don't get our business at Anime Boston.
Well, who knows?
And,
we'll see about that
Zenkai
then.
Con will be coming up at some point. I assume Scott's skipping it, but I'll be doing 4 panels.
We'll have to see.
You should come. I already put in our 4 panels, so.
We'll see.
I enjoy Zenkai Con, but here's what I'm going to do. Because, small cons, like, we don't need to see other panels. I'm going to do our panels. I'm going to eat Amish food like all day on Saturday. I'm not even going on Friday. Going Friday night. Amish food all day Saturday. Sunday, I'm going to play board games and get drunk in that bar on Main Street.
Why don't we just go home on Sunday?
I'm going to stick around for half. I'm going to leave like Sunday early evening is my plan.
Anyway.
We can take the Amtrak.
We'll see
right,
about that.
The Amtrak goes to the con. That's the only reason I go.
It's true, but it still sucks. Anyway.
But yeah, if you live near Zenkai Con, you should just go. Like if you can drive there.
I mean, no matter how shitty the con is, if it's that close to you.
And Zenkai Con's pretty good. Like
if you live in a place like that, you're not getting a lot of nerdery.
Zenkai Con is like 10 derpy cons worth of entertainment.
Sure,
like,
yes.
Not even joking.
That's true.
But we were doing Atari game designing game rules on Saturday and Sunday, both at 1 p.m. And also on Saturday in the evening. Early evening, as soon as I have more details, I will tell you, there is a 3rd panel. Scott's not on it. He's going to go play games.
Like a smart person.
Yeah, but I'll be on this panel, and you want to see this panel. I can't promise we'll video it either. And I'm pretty sure, because the person running the panel is a full order of magnitude more famous than we are, panel's going to fill.
Maybe.
It's weird because on one hand, that person told us that like we would be overqualified to be on the panel, but on the other hand, that person is so much more well-known than we are that it
well-known and qualified are not necessarily the same thing.
Exactly. But I feel like they're also qualified, but it should be a good panel. Yeah. So Yahoo, at least the story that the tech media is saying, is that Yahoo doesn't have QA anymore, and it's awesome, and everything's better now that they're, quote, coding with no net. That's kind of not true.
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, usually when you make software on a team, right, you'll have a developer, and they'll write some code, and then they got to share that code with other people. But before you do that, you double and triple check your code to make sure you're not sharing code that's garbage. Because if you share garbage code with someone, they'll be like, hey, that shit you just sent me, that patch, it just doesn't work. Did you even run this? You just wrote it and didn't even do anything? What the fuck's wrong with you?
Like, if I write a script to give to someone else to run, I at least run it once on my own. Be like, okay, yeah, it worked.
Right. You make sure that shit works. And then you'll have QA people who are not developers double, triple, quadruple, quintuple check it in every possible conceivable way. And why do you do this? Why doesn't the developer just do this? And the reason the developer doesn't just do this is because the developer could be writing code. The QA person doesn't have the skills and knowledge to write code. If they did, they'd be a developer instead.
Pretty much.
So this way, the developer can develop more, and then the QA person will find all the bugs, do work that the developer could do, but now the developer can focus on developing, the QA person can find the bugs, then once they report those bugs, it won't take the developer much work to fix them, because the QA person investigated them so thoroughly, and this way it'll be much more efficient everywhere. So the trend over the past bunch of years has been this idea of test-driven development, or at least lots of testing, which is where you write automated, you get the computer to do the tests for you. So instead of, or in addition to having QA people manually check over all the code and run all the programs, you have computer programs that check the computer programs.
Now, again, this just like the thing of, QA people testing, unit tests or test-driven development in the right situation is the right thing. Like, if you have code that, say, is taking a huge set of structured, like, XML data, like gigabytes of nonsense XML, transforming it into some other kind of data and calculating things, you don't want humans, like, plugging that data through and then, like, double-checking math or anything. You want an application that puts the data in to the code as a black box, sees the data that came out, and it knows what the answer should be, and then checks to see if the answer that should come out.
Right, testing is a perfectly valid and important and useful thing.
And there are a lot of different methodologies and places to test.
Right, and you should use tests often, if not in many places, right? And it's just so useful. Think about it. It's like you write some code, and now you run it, you make sure it works, and then you run the tests. And there's tests in there for all sorts of things, and all you do is say run tests, and you wait, and it'll check and be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, your code worked, whatever. It did the thing you thought it was going to do, but you actually reintroduced this bug that someone introduced a long time ago, and because they wrote a test for the time they made that bug, we were able to automatically find out with no one having to do any work, additional work, that your new code makes that bug happen again. So before you share the code, fix that bug and make sure these tests pass.
Now, that sort of regression testing is probably the best use case for test-driven development.
But you also, write a new test for the new code you just wrote, especially if maybe the code you just wrote is a bug fix in and of itself.
Yeah.
And if anyone, and then for the future, if anyone makes that bug happen and so on. And that's a good thing to do. It doesn't, hurt. But what Yahoo is doing is basically saying, hey, that's pretty much all we need. We don't need the QA people. Right? That's a bad idea.
And the way at least the way this article describes what they're doing, what they're describing are unit tests in a test-driven environment, but they're describing it like it's this like amazing paradigm shift. Like most large software development companies do both.
Right. So
like this is not novel.
Right. So the thing that bothers me here that's obviously a problem is the point of having the QA people is that developers can spend less time doing the QA part and just develop. If you make the developers do QA, you have one person doing two jobs. Are you paying? Did you give all those QA salaries to the developers? Now the developers doing QA's work?
No, but you gave them twice as much work probably.
Right. And it's like, as much, even if your testing is so good, it's not as good as QA people.
Now, did you give
QA people find shit that tests don't find all the time?
Yep. Now, there's this separate problem because one of the things that at least Yahoo pointed out was that what they found, just sort of analyzing their internal stuff, is that the human QA process was injecting a lot of human error. That QA, what I'm reading between the lines, that because I see this, in all the work that I've done, a lot of times QA is introducing work where they're finding issues that aren't really issues due to either them misunderstanding what the code should do, them finding issues that are technically problems, but that don't actually affect users, or that don't affect the things in material ways, and then there isn't a good process for someone to say, don't fix that. Or
Your mark is don't fix.
Yeah, but I find a lot of companies do not have a rigorous methodology for doing that, or they don't have people who have the ability to say those things, or developers who are looking for low-hanging fruit because they don't want to be doing the real work will fix a million shitty little bugs because they don't have the management watching them and telling them, no, only work on this one.
The other thing is that in my experience as a programmer, right, I don't write tests usually because the code I write isn't medical devices and isn't factory machines and isn't space shuttles. So it's not really that big a deal if there's a bug in production. It's like, oh no, someone's picture is offset by a few pixels.
Now, I feel like Yahoo's actually in the same boat. Like, nothing Yahoo does is mission critical.
Right. So in that case, it's like, unless your bug is so catastrophic, it's like, do you even need to test it all? Do you even need QA people? It's like, yeah, you'll if you run the code yourself, and you make sure it works, it's going to be 99% good, and all those, unless you're really bad developers, and there'll be bugs in production, but big whoop, you'll just fucking fix them later. You see, Twitter is basically down with the fail whale for like its first 2 years of existence, and no, it didn't fuck them over at all.
Yep.
So who really gives a shit? Is
Now,
it really
part of
that
this,
important?
There is a big difference between packaged software development, like here's our application that we sell that you run on computers or on servers, version 4.8.11, versus here's a website that we're hosting and iterating on development. Because say I push some code and it fucks up a website, I can just revert it back that night to the previous version, because the previous version
that minute.
Yeah, the previous version of the code right before I push that other code can't be worse than what just broke catastrophically.
Yep.
At worst, the old bug is still there. But if I ship software on a refrigerator,
it's got to be right.
So
no one can update that refrigerator.
But my worry is that because of the nature of my work, I kind of have to use LinkedIn, and so I see things people post on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of people who are bandying this Yahoo got rid of QA around as a good idea in places where it is not a good idea.
To save money by not having QA people. Just fire them all.
Yep.
Yeah.
I also feel like people don't know the difference between quality assurance as a process versus QA as you've got people testing code.
Right.
QA is a process. It's not just a checkbox.
You also have to make a cost-benefit analysis, right? So if you're writing something that's not a space shuttle software or refrigerator software,
Yep.
what would the cost to you to be of the bugs that get through versus the cost of hiring QA people?
So let's say GeekNights, right? We don't have a QA person. You know what the QA is? Scott updates the website, and I bitch if it breaks.
Right.
Like, okay.
And it's not a big deal. So now think about
GeekNights is down for a day. How much money do we lose, Scott?
0.
Yeah.
So
all right.
Here's the other cost-benefit analysis. Let's say you have a developer, and they can just write code, check it a little bit, and put it up. You have another developer who has to write unit tests for everything. You're losing the efficiency on the developer who has to write all the unit tests.
He's 40% slower, and
because now he's going to spend all this time writing these goddamn tests the QA person would have been writing.
And if you can read from Scott's verbal language there, like read between the lines, developers hate that shit, and they'll probably quit if you make
there's
them
a
do
lot
that.
of them who drank the Kool-Aid, but I hate that.
but I know a lot of developers who would quit if they had to do QA.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me I had to write unit tests for things that weren't important, it's like, no, sorry, see ya, right?
Yeah.
But, so now, if a developer has to write all these goddamn tests, they're going to be so much slower at working. Someone's going to be like, no, they'll increase their efficiency because they'll find the bugs and whatever, but it's like, but we don't care about the bugs. You already determined the cost-benefit analysis is such that the bugs getting through is not the end of the world. But now, how much development, you could have had 2 new features instead of unit tests for the 1 feature you had. Right? So is it more worth it to you to have 3 new features or 1 super rock solid feature?
Now,
right? You have to make that sort of decision. Right? So I guess Yahoo has decided that they want, fewer things done more rock solidly, but actually less rock solidly than they were before, because now QA people just the tests.
Yeah. So I have more, like, my experience, my job, almost every job I've had has been like the mission critical people might die crazy bullshit. And packaged software and all this stuff. And in my experience, the best QA processes involve dedicated QA, but basically the people doing the QA are also developers.
But then, couldn't they be developing? Aren't you?
So we already have all the developers we need to develop forward.
But if someone could be a developer, you could develop other things. It's like you don't. Why would you use a person who has developed skills to do QA work? That's like that's like if I hired a NASA engineer who could make a space shuttle to fix my car. It's like I could be having them making a space shuttle. It's wasted resource.
No, because if it's mission critical,
or I made my toilet out of gold when I could have made it out of porcelain.
Here's a hypothetical example from a job I had before, couple jobs before the job I have now. So let's say you've got some pretty mission critical software. Like, it's not people will die, but it's like
a lot of people will lose a lot of money.
Yeah, like big deal if shit goes south in this software that is going to be deployed.
It's important enough that you should test it.
So you have good.
It's not just a website. So
you have a real crack development team, like serious people working together making the software. It needs to be tested. The testing is complex. If you hire people who are QA specialists but are not developers at all, they're generally not capable of writing the kinds of tools you need to test that efficiently, and the developers end up needing to write the testing tools for them to use. If the developers were writing the testing tool, if we had developers who were doing the QA, they would want to do the job quicker. They would write the testing tool to be completely automated to not have to do the work.
I think that's really the best way to go, is like, the developers who are making the software, right, they don't make them test too much because then you'll get less software. Have someone else whose only job it is to write tests because they'll get really good at it. They'll be able to write more tests than like the 3 developers' code that they're testing.
But that person can't be like...
if my job is only to test code, I can test the code of like 5 developers and I'm just 1.
Yeah.
And, right, I could write the tests and do the testing and do everything all at once. And you'd get the rock solidness, but you also would get the efficiency at the same time.
Yeah. And this discounts UAT and all those other kinds of things. We're just talking about QA, like the basic babies first.
Make sure it doesn't crash, kind of QA. Make sure the number that 1 + 1 comes out as 2 and not as 5.
But to get to your point, the specific problem is, so you get, upon upgrade, fatal error at startup, application fails, here's the log, here's the error. That's not that useful because now the developer still has to do all the work and test and figure it out. I'd rather have a QA person who knows the code enough to say, well, it failed in that class. Let me look at the code and see if I can figure out what the problem is.
Right.
And go back to the developer and say, yo, dog, null pointer exception, your serialization is fucked.
You could even make if that person could even be good enough just to fix bugs. Like their job is they're our developer. They're just only a bug fixer and not a feature maker.
Yep.
I mean, think about it. A lot of times people work on open source projects. All they do is fix other people's bugs.
Yeah. They
don't write any new stuff. They just go to an open source project. They find bugs. They fix them and they submit their patches to fix the bugs.
So if you're crazy mission critical, like when I was in the hospital, like people might die mission critical. Cross development. You have 2 teams developing 2 things. Then, when you get to the point of, like, it's stable and ready for testing, you swap projects, and now their job is to write the tools and test the other person's stuff. That is what you do if people will die.
Yep.
I don't think that's done in most
places. And you
places.
also check it, like, many more than one time. You check it so many times.
Yeah, but that's when you go, people like to make fun of, like, not necessarily agile, but, like, the waterfall model or, like, methodologies of software development.
All methodologies are stupid.
If you're doing mission critical stuff like people will die, having a defined methodology just means it is very well defined what is tested where and when, and you can very quickly converge on failure, and you can very quickly identify where something got fucked. But you don't need that if you're running Yahoo Games.
It's okay if Yahoo Games is broken. Oh my God, someone shot the moon in hearts and didn't get the right score. Oh no.
I'd be real mad, but Yahoo doesn't make any money from me anyway, so.
Who gives a shit?
This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geek Nights is not 1, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geek Nights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geek Nights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.
And tonight's patrons are, in the order of the amount of money that they give us on a monthly basis: Nicholas Brandow, Rebecca Dunn, James David White, Christian Kuntz, Jess, Mechanical Mind, Testing 1, 2, 3, Phil Ulrich, Amanda Doucette, Renee from New Zealand, Robert Lee, Ryan Perrin, Drew Openlander, Rare Lavelle, Brian Cedrone, Rochelle Montanona, Finn Eric Silverod, Rim Eats Poop, Kinetic Man, William Eisenrose, Aaron Cerise, Chris Midkiff, Chris Knox, Flame Darkfire, Samuel Cordery, Daniel Redmond, Chris Haddad, Doug Snyder, Sean Klein, Chris Reimer, and Thomas Hahn. So I haven't put this information on the actual site yet. I kind of hinted at it on Twitter and a little bit in the forum, but it's not officially announced yet, so I'm burying it down here for people who actually listen to the end of the show. But so you know, that third panel I was talking about is just me. It's not Scott, because Scott, we do our usual lectures, but occasionally I will be asked to join someone else's panel just because I go to dev and I actually respond when people email me, and Scott's kind of surly, and you know how the deal is. But so I'm going to be on, very likely, this is like 90-something% confirmed, at PAX South, other than Atari Game Design and Designing Game Rules, an unnamed panel on horror in games. With Chris Straub. He's the person moderating it, and I'm just a panelist, and some other people, at least one other person. I won't name any names other than that yet because I can't necessarily confirm them, but it'll be Saturday at 5:30 p.m. in a panel room to be determined. So 1 p.m. on Saturday, 1 p.m. on Sunday, and 5:30 p.m. on Saturday is the horror panel. I don't know if I'll be able to video it and get it out to you guys. Apparently I'm an expert on horror games now. It seems like this came mostly out of that Five Nights at Freddy's video I did and some other stuff. And I kind of realized scarily that I actually am up on the current state of contemporary short horror fiction. And I'm actually surprisingly well-versed in that community lately because of Pseudopod and other sources. So I think it's actually going to be a good panel. So I suggest you line up for it because Chris is way more famous than we are. So our panels don't always fill all the way, but I suspect this one will. And now I leave you with the thing that Scott will never hear, literally the opposite of Zen, some sort of sound. If you're clever, you can figure out where these things come from. I feel like only Chris Reimer is batting 1,000 in terms of actually finding them.
Every single day, stress comes in every way. I ain't got no time for nobody. My style is rich, dope, fat, and rich. We'll make a cake today that looks rich. Crack, crack, crack the egg into the bowl. Crack, crack, crack the egg into the bowl. M-I-X the flour into the bowl. M-I-X the flour into the bowl. Crack, crack, crack the egg into the bowl. Crack, crack, crack the egg into the bowl. M-I-X the flour into the bowl. M-I-X the flour into the bowl. Baking a cake, yes, means you gotta try. I'm doing this for years, but don't ask me why. Butter, butter, butter joins the bowl. Butter, butter, butter joins the bowl. We're making us a cake that you've never seen before. We're making us a cake that you've never seen before. Heat up the oven, now we're on a roll. Heat up the oven, now we're on a
All the birds sing words and the flowers groom in the ticky 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 room. We're singing in the ticky room. Playing in the ticky room. Welcome to our tropical hideaway. You lucky people, you.